Afternoon, Alec. How are you today?
Fantastic. There's a lot to talk about there, but I'm afraid I have to take you back a bit. I won't say too how far for our audience here, but back to school days. I'm always interested to see what people were thinking in their sort of last year in school.
Yeah, going back, get quite a few years now.
Right.
Yeah, I left school in 1976, so you can work that one out yourself.
Yeah.
I was a comprehensive. I missed out on going to grammar school. Therefore, it was a kind of family decision that I was going to do an apprenticeship because that was the right thing to do back in those days. Back in those days, the apprenticeships were 5 years long,
Wow.
and there was lots of off-the-job training and going to college, etc. So I became a mechanical engineering apprentice for 5 years.
Fantastic. And how did that work out for you? Were you a person who's good with your hands?
It proved I wasn't so good with my hands
Right. Okay.
as I was great at process, a very process-driven person as well as being creative. And because I was a technician grade apprentice, it was always the time spent on the floor was to make sure that I would do things right in the office, which is where I was going to end up. So yeah, I was okay. I wasn't the best. I was pretty good at welding, and I got onto the machinery side of things and got a bit carried away. And there was called piecework in those days. And apparently, I
Right.
was using too many pieces and got told off by a few of the senior people, should we say, on the shop floor.
I must say it's a great baptism for somebody so young, though, if you know what I mean. You're getting a mixture of sort of dealing with things with your hands, but also in terms of office work and all about planning.
Yeah, it was. And to say, a 5 year apprenticeship, I don't even know if they still exist these days, was fantastic grounding because it taught you all the theory but all the practice. And then you took into the office side of things. And I spent some time in the drawing office, the estimating, the sales department, the accounts, right across the board. So you learned a bit of everything. And it wasn't just sort of a week or two. You spent 2 or 3 months in each department and then 6 months specializing. So yeah, it was really sort of setting you up for a long and illustrious career in mechanical engineering.
It's quite interesting. Most of the guests I speak with who have worked in large organizations often talk about one department not knowing what the other does. But what you're talking about there is that you got a good sort of cross grounding.
Yeah, that came into play later on in my career, actually, very much so. Um, so later on, still in the same sort of world, after I left my apprenticeship, I went and worked in various organizations around mechanical engineering and production planning.
Right.
And I worked for a company which was bought and moved to Telford in Shropshire. And we
Right.
had the very rare occasion to actually have, well, here's the factory, set it up how you want to. And
Wow.
we were
That
called the
was
Magnificent Seven. There were seven of us moved up from Farnborough to Telford. And we had this floor plan and we just laid it all out as we wanted to, which was fantastic. But yeah, originally it was production planning. Going
right.
back to what you said, we had a sales department and a production department that didn't actually speak the same language. And I'm sure there was completely different languages being involved here because sales would say one thing, production would say another, and then they would just ignore each other's comments. And the biggest loser was the client. Um,
Yeah.
and because I was always trying to become a go-between using my business relationship skills, that one of the directors spotted it and said, "Look, you seem to be trying to knock down this damn great wall between the departments. How about I'll give you a position that's officially that's your job?" And
Right.
yeah, I became the customer services director, and my job was to make sure that what sales were told from production was accurate, and vice versa, that sales weren't just taking the mickey by putting in orders on short when they knew darn well they wouldn't be available. So yeah, I spent a couple of years doing that, and yeah, it got to the point where it became very smooth, but it was in the building industry. Uh,
Right.
Unfortunately, that particular job disappeared
Right.
because the building industry has gone up and down, and it has a common theme throughout my career that I shouldn't get involved in the building industry, but I have.
Yeah. Tell me, it must be, what do you think was the biggest gap between sales and production? Or, I mean, you said they spoke a different language, but what do you think really was
I think
wrong here?
the salespeople weren't they weren't selling; they were basically order takers. And if the
Right.
client said they wanted this, that, and everything else, I wanted it for Friday, it wasn't. Well, we can't quite do that, but we can get it to you for Tuesday. It was, oh yes, sir, of course we'll do that for you, sir. And then they would tell production, you need to make it, and with no sort of consultation whatsoever. And of course, when you tell people,
Tony, what do you think? I mean, you were working, you saw the sales department and you saw the production. What do you think was the major gap that was happening there?
I think it was the sales department had literally become order takers. So if someone was on the phone and ordering bits and saying they wanted A, B, and C for Friday, it was yes. It wasn't checked with production that they could actually manufacture it. There was even capacity to do it.
Right.
And of course, they then put it on the system, and production would see it come through, and they go, well, "How are we meant to do this?" And I think that it became sort of a standoff between the pair of them. There was no real communication. Sales thought they were right, production thought they were right, and both of them thought the other person was being stroppy for the sake of it. And it wasn't. It just needed some coordination, and they weren't feeding back to the clients. The actual facts of the matter is the fact that they couldn't make it, but they could have it on Tuesday instead.
Yes.
And
And it's amazing that also when you talk to clients and explain that, they're quite happy with it. But often these false deadlines are promised.
yeah, funny that. If you actually sort of tell them the actual facts, the majority of them will actually go, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as you actually then meet the revised dates, etc. Yeah. I kind of was in a position where I was doing that on a regular basis, sort of sitting in between sales and production. And one of the directors said, you seem to be making some sort of headway. Let's make it official. And I was promoted, and eventually I became the customer services director for the company. And I was continually having meetings between the pair of them just to making sure that the client was getting the right information, because I kind of pointed out to both of them, well, if the client doesn't get his bits when he wants them, they're not going to pay the bills. Therefore, we're not having none of us going to have any jobs. So let's be serious about this. Let's be sensible.
Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I see it happening on so many different levels in so many different companies. You think they just join the dots, but they don't.
No, and they don't. And communications is one thing that does frustrate in, I suppose, virtually any company I've ever worked for since. There's always been this element of lack of communication.
Right. Okay. So from where next in your career?
Well, I was in the production planning side of things for a while. So this customer service role came about, and then I was in the building industry.
Right.
And yeah, it wasn't the best place to be. And bottom line, I was made redundant along with a lot of other people. It all went very slow. I moved to a very well-known company. I moved to a company called Arga Rayburn.
All right.
And that was a complete eye-opener, because I'm sure it was run by dinosaurs.
Really? What made you say that?
Well, I was brought in as a sort of a young trusting buck to streamline the production processes, etc., and computerize some of it.
Right.
And to do that, I had to go around all the different departments and make relationships with the department heads and tell them what we're trying to do. And it was very much across the board. We've always done it this way. It's always worked. We don't need to change. And they were just resilient to change. And yeah, I was there for 2-3 months. And my boss said, look, we brought you in with good faith to try and do this. It's not working. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with you. We're going to have to rethink it. Here's 3 months' money. You can go whenever you want, but you're banging your head against a brick wall, and it's not your fault.
Again, this is another issue. This resistance to change. Why? What?
I just don't know. I mean, not being funny. I was in my mid-20s. Majority of the department heads were probably, they look like they're 80, but they probably weren't. So they're probably in their 60s. Been there since they were kids. Yeah. And it always worked. So why change things? Change is sometimes a dirty word. And yeah, it's all about the ethos of Argo. Everything is traditional, and it was kind of really, really weird. I'm glad I worked there. But yeah, I would like to have seen some sort of form of flexibility. But as I say, I think it affects every company I've been involved in to a certain degree.
Yeah, amazing what goes on. So from there, okay, so you've got your 3 months' money. Where are you off to next?
Heading back home, because I'd moved to Telford in Shropshire. I came back to Farnborough, which is where I come from. And I got a job at a company in Camberley, which made interiors for planes, mainly for Boeings.
All right.
And that was great. I was I'd gone back to production planning. I was very fortunate that I worked very closely with the teams that came over from America. And probably the only regret I have in my business life is that they did invite me to go over there and work with them. And at the time, I just started a relationship with what was to become my wife and is still my wife, sitting in the other room.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the right timing. But it's probably the only thing I would think, if I'd had to go, what would have happened? But yeah, again, it was very, very interesting. And I actually left that job through my morals, my standards. That one of my departments that I looked after was moved onto a mezzanine floor.
Right.
The temperature was unbearable, and they were having to work day in, day out in temperatures which were 100 degrees. And I said, no, I can't have this. They need to be looked after. And apparently there was a minimum temperature, but there was no maximum temperature. So I got all the local, I got all the people, shop stewards involved in everything. And the answer was no. So I said, well, I can't work in this situation. I'm going. And I did. I left. I handed my notice in. I went to something entirely different for a little short period of time. And I went and worked for Allied Dunbar, and was a bit of an insurance salesman for a while.
Tell me about did you find anything really different about the American culture to the British culture in terms of work and how they approach things?
Yeah, absolutely. There was two distinct types of Americans. There was the people that I had most of the time dealing with, which was the managerial side, who were very process driven, were very good at what they did. And then there was the progress chasers who were very loud, and did a lot of shouting. But they knew what they wanted, and they knew how to go and getting it, and they weren't as fuzzy and fluffy as the English side of things. And I did actually respect them massively. And as I say, had things been different, I would have more than happy to have gone and worked over there with them. But yes, there's definitely a different way of doing things. But yeah, for me, I actually saw that it was beneficial working with them, and I learned quite a bit.
Fantastic. So anyway, on to Allied Dunbar Insurance. Okay, that's not the easiest world to get yourself involved in.
No, I suppose that was my first venture into kind of working for myself. I thoroughly enjoyed the people side of it. Again, people person. But I was in it when they decided that, well, quite rightly, all the lots of FASA rules come in, and there was so much more paperwork to be had. And I completely agree why. And of course, the more senior people would get in their PAs and all that to do that sort of work, whereas I was down right at the bottom of that and working my way up. And I found myself spending more time behind a desk doing form filling than I did meeting people, and that just didn't work for me.
Sure.
So I left that, and I went back into mechanical engineering. In fact, I went into the sign industry.
Right.
Manufacturing signs. But again, majority of the time, I was in the planning department, estimating department, sort of general management, and dealing with clients. And I gradually moved my way to the final position I had in the industry, which was that I became a senior account director at a large sign company in West London. And my accounts were all in the construction industry. So guess what's coming next?
Well, just before we get into that, I'm just interested because the one thing about signage I do know is that a lot of the companies particularly want signage yesterday because they're doing all sorts of things. I mean, I know there's bigger signs that are bigger projects, but a lot of signage is wanted now sort of thing.
Yeah, so again, going back to that's what the customer wants and what we can actually produce. We were working 24 hours in a lot of the print departments. So my speciality was in new housing estates going up, and the actual, all the signage that went with that and the hoardings that went around it. And it was the decoration of the hoardings, which was my forte. And yeah, not being funny, they were spending tens of thousands of pounds on these things. And they weren't, so again, we come back to the communication. So you had the people on site, who I used to go and visit, and then you had the people back at the office. And then you had a third party involved, which was the agencies producing the graphics. Communication between the three was, so we get a sort of, on Wednesday, we're opening a brand new marketing suite on Saturday, open to the public. Can you fit the hoarding Friday? No. It's physically impossible. If I stopped everything else we were doing, I could not print that amount of yardage. But I'll tell you what will be seen on Saturday? It'll be the front, the two
Yeah.
sides, back won't be seen. And actually, after you go about 100 meters both ways, I've looked at the site plan again from the car park, won't be seen. We get that fitted for Saturday. We'll come back next week and finish the rest. How does that sound? And that's the kind of way I had to go about it, because, as you say, once they knew that and they knew they were getting what people would see, they agreed to it, because it was physically impossible to do because of lack of communication. And that was quite regular, that you had to negotiate. And you were stuck in this sort of mad sort of four-way tie, because we were making it. The construction guys were giving us access to the site to go and fit it. Yeah, the head office actually was supposed to be signing off all the graphics and all that, and you had the agency producing them. And yeah, trying to line those four up was, yeah, you ever play three-dimensional chess? It's four-dimensional chess.
Well, at least the main thing you did learn was, let me give you a solution as opposed to a problem. And that kind of gets you over. And as you said, you're a people person, so that's a very important aspect of it.
Yeah, I firmly believe in saying no, but no because. Just a no is not good enough for me. I need to explain why I have given a no, and it has to be justifiable. And if it is, most people, you say, might be frustrated they can't get what they want, but they kind of understand the why.
Yeah, as you said, if it's physically impossible to produce it, it's physically impossible to produce it. I run into those issues myself, but as you said, once you give them some sort of solution, they're happy to work with it. So as you said, you sort of brought your lucky charm to the construction industry again.
Yeah. So in 2008, we had another crash. And where my sort of clients were spending lots of money, I was very nicely off. I was getting large bonuses. They went almost overnight to spending nothing at all, apart from any health and safety statutory signs that they had to display. There were 2 rounds of redundancy. I survived the first one. I didn't survive the second one. So I found myself, no, my position was made redundant. I found myself without a job.
Sure.
And I was, what do I do?
Sure. So what did you do?
Initially, everything that I thought was right, which was joining every job board in sight, going around all the local trading estates, dropping letters through the door, etc. But also talking to my network that I'd already formed on LinkedIn, and just telling them the situation. And it's kind of through that actually one of my clients also lost his job, because the other side of the coin, they also were. And he got himself a job at a charity, and he said, look, I want Tony to come in because Tony gets things done. I think he'd be the ideal person. So I went in, I had to do an interview and present to the board, etc. But I was duly offered the job. And charities are very frustrating. They're great people. I've got great motives behind what they do. Trouble is, they're not very business orientated at all. And budget is a swear word. And they wanted us to produce, so it was age concern. They wanted us to produce a service for the older, which they were not entitled to because they didn't fulfill the government criteria. Therefore, we would try and do a chargeable service at the cheapest possible rate we possibly could. But it was chargeable. So I had to set up that service on a budget of, okay. The guy that brought me in, he lasted 3 months before the frustration got to him and he left.
Right.
I lasted 18 months until my funding disappeared and I no longer actually had any money for my own job. So I found myself again out of work. Now this one was a bit more long-term, unfortunately. And I tried all the initial things I had before and nothing was working. And then I came across a job club.
Job club. Tell me more about that.
An executive job. I don't know to this day, I can't remember. Someone put me in contact with a job club, and they are charity based and they look at executives trying to get us back into work, put us through a 15-week course, if I remember rightly. And first couple of weeks they said, well, just go and do what you normally do and report back and we'll discuss it, etc. I just did my normal 60 hours work, because I always looked at finding a job as being a job in itself. So up in the
Yes, of
morning,
course.
dressed in a suit, down at the desk.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I got praise both weeks. Fantastic amount of effort. If you need to do the sort of effort Tony's doing. But on second week they said, but he's not doing the right things.
Right. Okay.
What should I be doing? And they said, well, there's two main things. Well, actually, the first thing is that 70% of the jobs that you've applied for don't actually exist, so you're wasting your time. Oh dear. Okay. Why is that? Well, a lot of ghost jobs. If you think of estate agents that have sold a house, they tend to leave the sign outside for a little bit longer. And when there's an internal promotion, they've got to put it out to the general public, just to conform to regulations. I said, you need to go networking, and you use this product called LinkedIn. Hey, I know LinkedIn. I've been on it since 2006. Yeah, but are you using it? I've been on it since 2006. Yeah, okay. So you're not using it properly. And what's this networking malarkey? And they said, well, okay, well, we are members of the Chamber of Commerce, the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, one of the biggest ones in the UK. And we have a free place at some of their events. Who'd like to go? So up goes my hand. I look around the room to see no one else. I said, right, okay, it's only 1.5 miles from my house. How bad can it be? It can be terrifying.
Of course they can.
It's absolutely, you walk into a room of 70 suits, as I referred to them then, and your proposition is, hi, I'm Tony. I'm out of work. I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? And yeah, that didn't get a great reception. And I thought, oh God, I went back and reported this, and everyone sort of justified the reason they didn't go. I said, well, no, it's going to work. It has to work. There's lots of businesses there. There's lots of contacts. And I said, I'm going to go back representing the job club. And they said, yeah, we've got some blank business cards. Off, with your boots. Anyone want to come with me? Still no one. Okay, right. So I went back. Following month, stood up for my 60 seconds, give the story about the job club, and complete 180. Everyone was now interested in talking to me. Everyone come up to me, how can we help? And I quite openly said, well, actually, I'm in the process. I'm looking for a job. Have you heard about this networking, Tony? I'll get you in as my guest. And all of a sudden, everything opened up. There was so much networking in the local area I just was not even aware of. And I was becoming a guest on a regular basis. And
getting profiled, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and because I'd always go there and I'd always barter, good old-fashioned term, that isn't it?
Yeah, it is great. I like bartering. Yeah,
I barter with my connections because I had nothing of anything else to give them, but my connections were pretty powerful even at that stage. So I get invited along, and I had no budget. The job allowance in this country is an insult. I had no savings, so I literally barter my way around the networking scene. And then in month 3 at the Chamber of Commerce, again, no one else was still coming. They had a LinkedIn specialist. Brilliant. Fantastic. Guy was fantastic. I know to this day, I still talk to him. And he said, look, anyone want to connect with me, stay at the end and we'll do a business card swap. So I stayed right to the end. Everyone else had gone. He said, oh, you're the guy from the job club. I said, yeah, but I'm also one of the guys that's looking. Could you possibly have a look at my profile? I said, I can't pay you. He said, yeah, no problems at all. What are you doing next Wednesday? I'm unemployed. Guess what I'm doing? Yeah, not a lot. So for the next 6 weeks, he took me through a process which basically elevated my profile. All-star performance, taught me how to use the platform because he was working in Europe at that time. He didn't come back to the UK apart from having a holiday. So I was never really treading on his toes. So he was quite happy to impart his knowledge to me.
Fantastic.
Went back to the network with that. I become far more valuable because
I'd say you did.
What I knew on LinkedIn was far beyond what most other people did. But it did take me best part of a year, and I was probably one payment off of, potentially losing my house because job seekers stops, the insurance on the mortgage relief stops. So I was very close to it, and I got a job with the Chamber of Commerce. I kept banging on the door. So another thing is be persistent.
Be persistent and be present, and also, keep giving. This is always one of the key things. We're into about the last 4 minutes because I wanted for our audience as well. I mean, I think it's a fascinating story about resilience and all of the things that we all have to face up to. Would you like to talk just a bit about LinkedIn? Because I mean, this is obviously your world now, being a LinkedIn profiler. Without giving away too many of your top secrets, would you like to talk a bit about it, and also the website where people can find out more.
Okay, let's get the website out of the way. So it's www.solidsilversolutions.com. But guess what? Probably easy to find me on LinkedIn.
Probably,
And
I would imagine.
There's a little thing that we missed at the beginning. My name is Tony K. Silver, and the K is so
Tony Silver, which, yeah,
because there's only one of me. Okay, if you've gone to Google, you've gone to LinkedIn and put Tony K. Silver in, guess what? Yeah, me. So that's quite vital, and that's a trick I picked up a little while ago. So that's how they can contact me. Hints and tips on LinkedIn. Well, it's a massive profile platform. There's 28.5 million UK users. Not everyone's using it properly. Not everyone's on it all the time. In fact, statistics show me that over 90% of people on LinkedIn aren't using it properly at all. And that's mainly because they haven't been told. They haven't been moved from the old online CV, which is where we were back in 2008 when I sort of needed it, to actually it's actually a very vital business tool used by lots of large companies, lots of smaller companies. In fact, I think statistics show that about 75% of all major business decisions are using LinkedIn as part of it. So hints and tips for the listeners. Apart from being a search engine, so you can go and prospect, what do people find when they find you? So you have a profile that's sitting out there in the ether, and actually there's 690 million people on LinkedIn. So we're not just retaining it in the UK. I have clients all over the world, so they can find you. But what do they find? Well, the biggest issue in this day and age is in the marketing terms, what's in it for me with them?
Yes, yes.
And your profile needs to tell the person what it is you can do for them. And so many people do not. They fail miserably. Oh, and by the way, you've got between 5 and 7 seconds to engage them. So there's 4 key areas. And I tell everyone, this is all free stuff. You've got 4 key areas they will look at. The banner that goes across the top of your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
If it's a standard LinkedIn banner, change it now, today, please, because that is a really big part. And most people are visual, and they will look at that first. And if it's just the standard one, you're missing a massive opportunity. You need a picture up there, but you also need words. Very few industries can tell the whole story in just a picture. I have a couple of speaking friends. So in our world, if you put yourself on stage speaking, it gives a fairly good clue as to what you do.
Yep.
But for many people, they haven't got that. So, get a picture with some words up there, what you are offering the person that's viewing. Then we go to the headshots, and we have the good old discussion about what it should look like. Quite simply, it's a head and shoulders shot across against a plain background, because that gets 14 times more engagement than those really arty-farty ones that all the creatives say they should have. Right. Yeah, that doesn't work. Then, quite crucially, the most important part, probably, of the whole profile, the headline. That bit that used to be your job title, and if it still is, you're back in the wrong decade, I'm afraid. It needs to say what you can do for me. And I always say to people, because LinkedIn have just increased the characters to 220 in there, you've got a lot more scope. And in there, I would ask some questions. So mine's quite simply, would you like your LinkedIn profile to generate more leads? ? As a LinkedIn profile, I can help you, and I can go on and justify by putting some keywords in there as well. Too many people are stuck in the realm of, I'm the CEO of ABC Corporation. Really, so what? It means nothing to me looking in from the outside. But if you tell me you can do this for me, then I'm going to engage with you. And then finally, there's the about section. And a lot of people don't realize that the first 3 lines are visible on devices, any type of device. And so many people start with the I word. No, it's still about the person viewing. So it needs to be the you word. Right. Once you get those 4 right, so a nice visual, proper headshot, abouts, and the headline telling people about what you can do for them, they're going to push the see more button. Then that opens up the whole profile. Then you've got far more chance of people engaging with you. So if nothing else, those are the top 4. And if you don't do anything other than one, it's get that headline changed. Get that headline telling me, because the important thing about the headline is with the headshot, it follows you around LinkedIn. So if I looked at Alex, and I know you looked at my profile earlier because I've got a notification, I will notice that Alec has looked at my profile. It will show me his profile picture. It will show me his headline. Okay. Right. So it follows him around. But on the app, only about the first 25 to 30 characters are actually shown, so it's truncated. So make those characters actually mean something rather than being halfway through a sentence. So again, that's another top tip at the moment in time, but not a lot of people are aware of that. But yeah, go onto your LinkedIn app and look at other people's, and you'll notice that it's does Alex True, the business expert, but and it stops after 30 characters. It doesn't make sense.
So make sure you fill it that up. Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, Tony, just for our audience, as we've run out of time now, maybe you'd like us to tell them again where they can find you.
Okay, so quite simply, make it very simple. On LinkedIn, Tony K. Silver, LinkedIn profiler. There's only one of me. Very easy to find.
And